Welcome back, everybody, this week in America. Great to have you with us on the program. Back with us on the show today, Nina Spencer, a popular international keynoter, best-selling author of Getting Passion Out of Your Profession. We've talked about that in the program. And the new book, A Time to Creep, A Time to Soar, Lessons Learned from Work and Life from Climbing Kilimanjaro. Nina has been dubbed by the National Post as one of Canada's leading motivational speakers. She addresses audience from a diversity of associations, professions, and industries, exuding a magical blend of information and inspiration served up with high energy and a relaxed authenticity that appeals to both genders, all generations, and a whole spectrum of the corporate landscape, from senior management to the frontline staff. And Nina Spencer back with us on the program to talk about A Time to Creep, A Time to Soar. Nina, welcome back to the show. Great to have you with us again.
Rick, thanks for having me back. So wonderful to be with you and your listeners.
Well, we had such a great time the last time talking about getting passion out of your profession. Interviews available. If you go to our website, thisweekinamerica.us, you can go to iTunes and listen to it, a direct link there. You can go to YouTube and watch and listen as well. The new book is really fascinating. I'm going to try to talk about it during the course of the program. We may have to talk about it during the course of programs because there's so much great information here. But what's interesting, and when you start reading this, Climbing Kilimanjaro, the song from Sound of Music comes to mind, Climb Every Mountain. And I understand as a kid, you hated that song.
That's right. When we were kids, we would always sort of lift the needle back in those days when we were talking about vinyl and move it on to the next song. But as I grew older, and especially once I climbed Kilimanjaro, I realized that song was full of powerful and inspirational meaning. Climb every mountain, ford every stream, and we did cross a few streams as well, and really shoot for your dreams. Follow every rainbow, isn't that the next line, until you find your dream. And
yeah, watch it. We're going to be doing a duet here before the program is over and singing along with this. But for so many people, that's a metaphor. For you, it was actually what you did. How did you get to that point where, okay, I'm going to push myself. I think I'll climb a mountain. And a mountain that everybody's familiar with.
Mm-hmm. Yes, because unbeknownst to some people, Kilimanjaro is the world's tallest freestanding mountain. People will say, well, what about Everest? And indeed, that's true. But Everest is part of the Himalayas. So freestanding, a standalone mountain, Kilimanjaro is the tallest. It's the fourth highest peak. It's one of the 7 summits of the world. And so for many people who aspire to do these kinds of climbs, this is on their lifelong bucket list. But for me, Rick, it was not. It wasn't even something that I thought I would do 2 weeks before I agreed to sign on. For me, it was a matter of the perfect storm of things conspiring, in life that come together. My dear friend of over 30 years of friendship passed away, and then 2 weeks later, the only dog I'd ever owned died as well of cancer. And then the next month, my 20-something daughter was ready to launch and buy a place of her own and go on with her life. And I ended up having this hole. There was lots of transition, lots of change, and there was a void. And so therefore, the long and short of it was, somebody sent me an email and said, we are going to climb Kilimanjaro. Would you like to join? And at first I thought, oh, isn't that nice for them? No, I'm not interested. Delete. And I got this message, this newsletter, every week for 6 months. And then finally on one day in June, 6 months later, it came in again after I had a few moments of sadness and gave myself permission to have a tear or two. And when I wiped my eyes, went back to my computer, and lo and behold, there it is again. And all of a sudden, Rick, sometimes you just have those epiphanies, those smacks up the side of the head. Someone's been yelling at you to do something, or something's been in your face, and you pay no attention. And then one day, the moment is right, it's an omen, and you just say, I have to respond. So I did.
Yeah, the book we're talking about is A Time to Creep, A Time to Soar. Nina Spencer, our guest in the program. The book's available all over. Nina's the best-selling author of Getting Passion Out of Your Profession. Her website is ninaspencer.com. And you talk about stepping off Someday Isle and actually climbing the mountain. How difficult it is to do that, because a lot of us spend most of our lives on Someday Isle. We have great intentions, but we just don't quite get them initiated.
And I remember that expression, someday I'll. Dennis Waitley, one of the great inspirational speakers out there, I remember he was the first person to coin that phrase. And I I just knew that it was time to do something different. I love to ask myself, and even to ask listeners and my audiences and keynotes as well, when was the last time you did something for the first time? And when I asked myself that, I thought, I'm asking people to do it, but what's my own answer? And it might even be something for you to contemplate in the time after our conversation. When was the last time you did something for the first time? And because of that, I decided that I wanted to have a clear answer to that. And this was something exciting and new and different, and would really take my life off of autopilot, and I'd be manually driving it for a while. And so I said yes, and it was exhilarating. 7 months of training. All kinds of people decided to help me with my training, to come along on hikes. I ended up outfitting a whole new hobby, something that my husband and I could do together, and we still do. It's been 5 years now, and sometimes you just gotta get up off of that thing, like the song says,
Well,
and do something new.
When you ask that question, doing something for the first time, the first thought that came to mind is, at my age, I probably shouldn't be doing that. Do we have these age restrictions? Because you didn't. You were able to burst through that, and it's like, that doesn't make any difference. I'm going to do something new for the first time.
Yeah, and I was 52 when I signed on, and that was in June, and we went the following January. So by the time I climbed, I was 53. And I was one of the youngest of our group of 13 people. The oldest was in her mid-60s, a husband and wife who were in their mid-60s. So Kilimanjaro is not a simple walk in the park, and anybody who thinks that it is will get quite the eye-opener when they start. It's a demanding climb still, but it is trekking. It is not mountaineering. It's not ice picks and crampons on your feet and things like that. So it's quite doable if you train for it, and if you put yourself into it earnestly and give yourself enough lead time. Even though it will still be demanding, you will maximize your probability of summiting, and it can be done as long as you're in general good health and you take it seriously. There are people who don't take it seriously and think that it's easy because somebody has misinformed them, and then they find that they've spent all that time, all that money, and they're disappointed that they get pulled off the mountain on the third day. So you have to give it respect, but it is doable even if you're deep into your middle age.
The book is called The Time to Creep, A Time to Soar, Lessons Learned for Work and Life from Climbing Kilimanjaro. Let's talk about the book, because you divide it into two parts, A Time to Creep and A Time to Soar. And I want to start with one in The Time to Creep. In fact, you start the book with this: defy those who say you ain't the type to climb a mountain. How do you handle the naysayers who say to you, are you out of your mind?
Well, that's kind of funny, because a lot of people think of me as somebody who wears suits and stockings and high heel shoes and does her nails and, kind of girly. But beware of judging books by their covers. We know that intellectually, and yet still we can't help but default to that sometimes. But I think we are all of us are more than what we present, and complex people as well, and multifaceted. Sometimes we know it and they don't. Sometimes we don't even know it unless we're pushed to the test. And so when people said, what, you're going to do this? You've never even camped in your own backyard in the middle of summer, never mind in tents for 9 days, progressively colder temperatures and altitudes. Aren't you a little old for this? I just said, just watch me. Watch me. I love that expression, Rick. And the other part, of course, is if you listen, and I did for a few minutes, metaphoric minutes, to people who say that you can't, or are you sure, or you're crazy, if you start taking that bait, then you undermine yourself, and you're sunk before you even start. So it's really important to stick your fingers in your ears and go, no, I'm not listening, and just surround yourself in the beginning, whether it's the mountain or any goal or dream that is a doable dream, at least hypothetically. You're not doing something crazy. But if it's a doable dream, surround yourself with people who are going to cheer you on. There's so many yeah but people out there, and you don't need to hear from them when you're starting out on an exciting new adventure or shooting for a goal that is quite hypothetically doable. It's so important to keep your energy focused and just share your nuggets, your pearls with people who appreciate what it is that you're up to.
And you talk about it's no different than any major challenges we face, most of us face every day. The book is A Time to Creep, A Time to Soar. Nina Spencer is our guest. The website, ninaspencer.com. Look on directly by going to our website, thisweekinamerica.us. Once again, one of the chapters at A Time to Creep is get back in the saddle again. And boy, that's something we can use in real life. Occasionally we get knocked around a little bit and we're thinking about retreat or even defeat. And you're saying, nope, hop back up and give it another shot.
Yeah, there's a couple of things that I'm thinking about in regard to that. First of all, going back to the title, A Time to Creep, the Swahili, who were our guides, we had 3 medical guides and a whole bunch of staff, because nobody ever really does these things alone, do they? We think we do, but there's usually quite a network of people who are the wind beneath our wings, so to speak. And the Swahili would tell us, pole, slowly, slowly. And sometimes I think that's one of the biggest secrets of life. Keep moving slowly in the direction of your dreams and what you want. Don't rush, even if you think you can rush through it. Try to harness yourself a bit and rein yourself in and go at a steady, thoughtful pace. So that is the time to creep. There is a time to creep when it comes to our goals and our dreams, to go slowly, and then you'll have your time to soar. I know that there's a lot of cliches flying out of my mouth right now, but as corny as it seems, the journey of 1,000 miles, as the Chinese proverb says, really does begin with a single step, and then the next step, and the next step, and the next step. And if you sew all of those together, you end up summiting the world's tallest freestanding mountain at 19,342 feet. It can be done. So getting back in the saddle is about if you have a setback, if you fall, people will fall, whether they're on a mountain or whether they stumble with some business proposition or whatever. All sunshine makes a desert. Nothing is all sunny all the time, all that kind of stuff.
Right.
Then you're going to fall. That's fine. Just don't let it be the undoing of you. You get back up and you go. You know, Rick, I don't know if I ever mentioned this before, but I was a competitive figure skater and turned professional in my younger years. And during the competitive days, you've all seen skating on television and maybe even in person. The music is playing. You're doing this double, you're doing this triple jump. You fall on your bum, the music is playing. You got to get up and keep going. The music is playing. And that's the way it is in life, too, and that's the way it is on the mountain. You get up, and you keep going.
The book we're talking about is A Time to Creep, A Time to Soar. Nina Spencer, our guest on the program. A chapter is Listen to Your Inner Voice. And this, I think, is so important because so often, even if we do listen, we sort of go back over it and go, no, we can't do that. It's really important, isn't it, to take that inner voice and to incorporate what you're hearing.
Yes, especially if other people are telling you other ways. This harkens back to what we were just mentioning, that you know your gut tells you the right way to go. I think about it. Remember when you were in school and you had a multiple choice test and you weren't sure if it was A or B or B or C? You were thinking it might have been A, but then you went with B, and then you found out when you got the test scores all back it was A after all.
Yes.
You know, sometimes I think we know, and then for whatever reason we doubt our intuition. And although I suppose sometimes it might lead you the wrong way, more times than not, the intuition it guides us well. And just try to focus on what it is that you want to do. Listen to your intuition, and take some educated guesses as well along the way.
The final chapter, I believe, is the memory of succeeding can inspire forever. Talk about that, because I think that's so important, that success, and you enjoyed it probably the most when it actually happened, but you're still, I would assume, living off of that success. I mean, if you've climbed that mountain, you can just about do anything.
Yeah, and that's the key. You climb up there, you see what there is, you stay for a few minutes, quite literally. When you're up there, you stay for a very small amount of time. We had an exceptionally lucky day. It was exceptionally, quote-unquote, warm, and so therefore we stayed for the best part of 45, 50 minutes. But normally people stay up less than 10 minutes. They get their photo op and they get down. So whether you actually stay up high at your goals and at the summit of your goals for a long time or a short time, the reality is there is such a thing as chopping wood, carrying water. There's the normal rhythm of normal days. Not all days are going to be the big glory days. But what happens is this, and this is what's happened for me. Once I'm down and doing my regular work, driving to here, doing groceries, laundry, whatever it is, just the boring chop wood, carry water stuff of a normal day, I can always remind myself of where I've been and what I've done. So if I'm in a funk or if I'm in a difficult situation, I can remind myself because I have the memory of it and in my heart, in my mind's eye, that I have done this difficult thing. So every now and then I'll get some really low-grade hard thing to do, and I will succumb to it. And then I kick myself in the behind and I say, oh, for goodness sake, Nina, you've climbed the world's tallest freestanding mountain. For goodness sake, if you can do that, you can do this. And just give myself a loving smack up the side of the head and a good shake and remind myself. So for me, what I'm sharing here is this. You don't always stay in the glory moment. You got to come down into the valley of your regular life sometimes. But you will never be the same after you've reached for your goals or achieved a certain kind of success that you're shooting for. That memory will be with you, and it can be your springboard and your inspiration through all kinds of times.
You close the book, A Time to Creep, A Time to Soar, with an interesting quote: the difference between a goal and a dream is a deadline. And I guess that probably brings us back to getting off that someday island. You really need to, if you're going to do it, you really need to get the plan in place and to, in this case, come up with a deadline. That'll get you moving and hopefully get you to the point you accomplish it.
Yeah, it makes me think of a bit of a play on words, because you want to peak at the right time. Ha ha ha.
Yes.
No pun intended. But I think we all do. We want to, when we're shooting for our goals and so on, we're trying to work on the rhythm, work on the strategy that gets us peaking at the right time. If you think about Olympians are always trying to make sure that they do their very best work. They're peaking in time for the Olympics. And it's the same thing with any dream or goal. To have a deadline, quite frankly, I think it makes you hustle butt a little bit, doesn't it? It makes you realize
yes.
that, and if I really want to get quite spiritual about it or whatever, we should think about this and make haste for our whole lives, because our whole lives, all of our lives, have a literal deadline.
Exactly.
This doesn't last forever. So, what are the things that you want to do, and give yourself a deadline. And quite frankly, I believe that if you don't achieve your deadline, then move it, renegotiate it in your head. But at least give yourself a reasonable, strategic date upon which you are going to achieve X, Y, and Z.
The book is an excellent read. A lot of great information in there, motivational information, A Time to Creep, A Time to Soar, lessons learned for work and life from climbing Kilimanjaro. Our guest in the program, Nina Spencer, also best-selling author of Getting Passion Out of Your Profession. Her website is ninaspencer.com. Her books are available all across the country. And of course, you can link on directly to Nina's website by going to our website, thisweekinamerica.us. Nina, it is always a pleasure. We will do this again. Thank you so much for being with us once again on the program.
Oh, my pleasure. It's great fun talking with you, too.
Thank you. You're listening to This Week in America. Information on Nina and all of our guests at our website, thisweekinamerica.us. Stay tuned. Back after these messages.